Let's talk about it.
Whoa.
Hey, Richard.
What's happening?
How are you, buddy?
You know, with these earbuds I have in, um,
Hmm.
that whole last section of "Let's talk about it." That sounds really like crazy bass response in these earbuds. I'm like, scare myself, but it's my own voice.
Pretty scary, right? Did your
Oh.
teeth chatter?
My whole body went, oh, yeah, in fear, just fear.
Right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome
Welcome.
to another wonderful episode of Let's Talk About It with your one and only Mr. Richard Ruland and myself. I thought I'd change it up a little bit. Canadian Katie Turner in the house.
Canadian Katie Turner.
Right?
Wow.
Welcome. There's so many people already in the chat room. Thanks for
Oh my
joining us,
God, yeah.
guys. Jen, Nikki, Brenda, Colette, Melvin. How's it going? Brandy? How's
Jessica,
it going,
Penny,
everybody?
Randy, yeah, look at it. Melvin. Melvin, are you not naked? Tell me you're not naked, Melvin. I don't want to know.
PG, Melvin. PG,
That's right.
buddy.
PG, buddy.
So how was your week? How was everybody's week? I'd love to know. How was everybody's week?
You know, it for me, the week was kind of crazy. It was one of those things where I thought, you know, I have a theory called the snapback theory, the rubber band theory. And the theory for me of it is things go well for a while. It's like pulling on a rubber band, and then something goes, let go of the rubber band, snap, and everything goes right back to ground zero again. And you're like,
Lose it.
what the crap?
It's brutal. Hello,
Ryan.
Jessica and Penny. How's it going, guys? Thanks for sharing. We appreciate it.
Hey, Jeff?
How's it going? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the share, by the way, guys. Thank you so much for the share.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, I'm definitely at the age where I need the magnifiers. Looking at this little screen instead of the the big laptop
Tara?
screen.
Valerie, Brian.
I feel very old.
So, guys, at the beginning of every episode, we always mention it. We do simulcast. We do it on multiple networks, and therefore, I may not be able to see all of your comments. I've got multiple screens going here. I'm trying to see all the screens. I apologize. If there's a comment that you need from us,
Helen.
please don't hesitate. Put our names in it. One of us will try and get it. Please don't be upset. We aren't ignoring your comments. As Richard had stipulated before, we try to keep it to the subject matter, but don't be afraid to ask your questions. And if it's something personal you don't want to share with people, you're more than welcome to send us a private message too. If we can answer it that way, we will. Okay? We appreciate the fact that you're here with us tonight.
And tonight's a little different, guys. We normally get on a topic or 20, knowing us. But, we have a guest on tonight, kind of share with us some things that she's had done in her life and is doing in her life. She's done something I was asked to do, and I've only done it twice. I've written in 2 different books, and I've been asked to write a full-length novel. I don't have the patience for it. I don't know how people do it. I don't have it. Life is too fleeting to give up hours upon hours and days upon days to be able to do that kind of thing.
Adam?
So, I mean, anybody that can do that, can sit there and do that and give up that kind of time, I give a lot of credit to, because to me, that's a lot. I mean, I did 2 excerpts in 2 different books. There were 3,000 words. Yeah, I shut it down in a few hours, but to do an entire book, I don't think so. Hey, Ruth.
Unbelievable. So tonight we have a really cool guest. Somebody who, I mean, to go through what this family went through is uncanny. It's something that, looking into her history and looking into kind of who she is as a person, and not only is this a wonderful author, but I'm telling you, this poor family went through a lot of stuff. And guys, we're just gonna dial it back for a little bit. If you are squeamish, if you are you don't like scary stories, I don't know if this is the show for you, because this is pretty intense. It's, as a seasoned paranormal investigator, a lot of what this lady has experienced, puts the hair on the back of my neck up. And, that takes a lot. So, we're pretty excited to see this lady and have her tell us her stories. But yeah, just be prepared. It's going to be pretty epic.
Right. And Jen? Yeah, again, running anything about the paranormal of your own experiences is a hard thing to do, because when I know when I wrote into the books I put into, which are Amazing Paranormal Experiences, volume 1 and 3, it was, you reel back into what you experience, and sometimes you relive, at least in my experience, you relive some of the more horrific, because that's that's what sells, honestly, is if you've got a mountain of traumatic events that have happened to you. That came out in New York. It's gonna happen. Okay. If you have a traumatic experience, it's hard to write that down, because in your mind, you've got to relive it.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if I would ever want to do that for a full book. I mean, stuff that she's written in and stuff that she's experienced in the one book alone, is harrowing. It's harrowing, and it's just kind of amazing to me. And I love listening to the stories behind the books, because to me that kind of engages you as a listener as to what she went through, which I think is pretty amazing. It really is. We got some people making comments in here, and honestly, I can't.
Sorry, guys, I know, and I'm trying to get into comments, and I'm trying to make sure I get everybody's going. So if you see me looking down, I'm certainly not ignoring you. I'm really trying to make sure I get everybody's comments. So, without further ado, I think that we should introduce our guest. We'll talk a little bit about her and her story. So, what is the name of this lovely lady?
This lovely lady's name is Lynn Monet. She lives here in the States, in South Carolina, I believe it is. And she, like us, has a few abilities that she deals with on the everyday. Why don't you talk a little bit more about what she's got going on?
Yeah. Okay, so are you guys ready? Drum roll. So Lynn Monet is a world-renowned author of Omnipresent, and she's actually come out with a second book. It's going to be here too. What Happens Next? What Happens Next? And Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End. Lynn is a paranormal consultant and lecturer specializing in hauntings in the afterlife. She is an empath with the ability to see frequencies interdimensionally. Most cannot. She has been a nurse for over 20 years, most of which has been the end of life care, management, and geriatrics. She also has a degree in biological science. Lynn has been a guest on Earth Flies with Linda Moulton Howe, Coast to Coast AM Radio with George Norrie, Space Out Radio with Dave Scott, After Hours AM with Joel Sturgis, Darkness Radio, Bigfoot and the Bunny, The Leak Project with Rex Bear, Beyond Reality with J.V. Johnson, Supernatural Realm with Tim Roxbury, Circle the Universe, Angels to Aliens with Heidi Hollis, Dark Horse Paranormal, and many more. So I think this year she's been on at least 22 paranormal podcasts, like telling her story, and so many people want to hear about this, and so we're pretty excited to have her in the studio tonight and hear what she has to tell us.
Yeah, and again, it's just to listen to other people's experiences is exhilarating at times, to be able to sit back and hear the stories about how it all came to be. Now, with her being a nurse and being an empath, wow, I don't, end of life, hospice, whatever you want to call it, that is pretty emotionally draining as it is. But then, you're going into other things in life, like paranormal investigations, with those same abilities. So you're adding it all up on top of yourself. And I don't know how many salt baths she takes a month But so I mean, it might get down to a point where they're once a week. Who knows? But to be able to clear your energy and be able to reset yourself like that, going through that is real rough.
Absolutely.
Real rough.
Yeah. I'm going to jump over to Things Network and just say hello to Paranormal Nation Radio. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming in. Don't be shy. If you guys have any comments or questions, please, if you have any questions for Lynn, put them up in the comments. And we can certainly ask her for you, or hopefully, she's going to be so intrigued with the story that we may have to interrupt her for the comments. Who knows?
You never know.
Right.
I know when I get on a roll with talking about paranormal experiences, I don't stop very easily myself. So,
And if anybody's ever watched this show before, they know I can talk.
There are times I might want to go, hello. No.
I just get into a passionate tangent. What can I say?
You do. You get on that soapbox because you're passionate about what you talk about, and that happens. There are times on here I've got a little cranked up myself, so that's just part of it. These guys just get to be the victims of my stories and stuff, so it's a little different. Hey, Brenda, how's it going? But we've got a lot of people on here already tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing more come in. And again, like Katie said, don't hesitate to ask questions. Our guest is prepared for them, and we are prepared to read them to her so they can get answered. Just kind of that kind of thing. Hey, Timothy Shaw, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you on here as well.
Welcome back, buddy. Gotta be lovely when you show up.
Getting so close to bringing her in. Yeah, I feel like somewhat like a younger version of Alfred Hitchcock in his chair, but it's not my usual dealio. There we go.
Well, I'll say it now, and I'll mention it again. We're going to let Lynn fly with where you can find her and how you can get her information, but I know that she has books available. You can go to her website. We're going to put it up in the link comments after, ligmonette.com. You can find her on, I'm pretty sure, on Amazon. You can find her in a bunch of places. So, if you're wanting to do your research now, don't hesitate to click on the link. Go to our website, check it out. We posted her beautiful face on our advertisement, so you'll be able to see her face right there. And pretty soon she's going to be up here with us and going to tell us her life story.
I don't know where I'm getting a little feedback in the mic, so I think it's your mic or my mic, one or the other.
I feel clear. Is everybody clear here? Hey, Laura. Hey, Jeanette, Ellen, Stephanie.
You're not clear at all. Your mic is all screwed up there, hon. Your mic.
Clear.
Sounds like a robotic to me.
Well, nothing has changed.
Okay. That could be just me.
I believe it. Is it still, guys? Can you put us in the comments and let us know if I'm sounding robotic? I mean, I know I can be melodramatic and I can be, but robotic.
I can't see that, but okay.
Okay, so people are saying both of our comments are clear. And Nikki says, It's incredible how our careers often seem to mirror our own abilities. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but just been thinking about it lately.
You're good.
No, you know what? Nikki, you are not wrong. A lot of times, subconsciously, our bodies, our spiritual consciousness takes us in the direction that we need to go. When I graduated high school, wanted to join the military in the worst way, and I didn't know why. And I kept talking to my parents about it. And fast forward, I ended up marrying somebody in the forces, and so.
Thank you, Laura.
It was a subconscious kind of thing. It was drawing me in that direction. I just didn't understand it. And sometimes what happens is it makes us think we're supposed to be in it rather than around it. And that was my case. Once, I was in the relationship, I understood it more. And, going through this and doing readings and working on a spiritual basis more and more every day, you start to see how clear that is. And the clarity is just, you kind of get a giggle when other people don't see it because you're able to witness it so much. So, you know what, guys, sit back, really kind of self-reflect in that regard and really start to think about why you're doing what you're doing in life. And I'm telling you, it's going to take you to a further path.
I think it's time to bring the guest in.
Okay, I'm excited. I
think it's time to bring Lynn in. So let's go ahead and bring her in.
Okay.
Just add her to the stream. There she is. There we go.
Hi, everybody.
How's
it going?
I'm fine. It is so, thank you so much for inviting me. I really was looking forward to this. I'm excited. Miss Katie, you're beautiful. And
thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. I'll pay you later, Lynn.
Richard, you're my man. You're my man. Don't worry. I mean, you did a beautiful job on the advertising. He and I actually spoke on the phone for almost an hour the first time that we started, talking about things. So I really appreciate all of your efforts. So
now, we've had several guests on here before, and I have the glorious title of being the executive producer. So I'm going to put all the pieces together, and that way, when they fail, Katie gets to blame it on me. So, but no, it was a pleasure talking with you. We're glad to have you on. Now, she needs to hear that because it's the truth. I get abused on here all the time, Katie. Okay. Yeah. But no, it's a pleasure having you on. We're really looking forward to hearing your story, your amazing story, about your amazing books. We were talking, as I'm not sure if you heard how much you heard before you came in, but we were talking about that, and with you being a nurse, 20 plus years, I was talking to Katie. I said that plus the fact that you're empathic is amazingly hard, especially when you're doing something like hospice or end of life. The ability to get rid of that energy when you get home is extraordinarily hard. I can only imagine how hard it must be for you.
I look at it differently because of my ability to see interdimensionally. I can see the body transitioning, the person transitioning out of their physical body, but I can also see on the other side of the veil where the family and those that are waiting to help the soul leave their body and cross back over into the other side. And so to me, there's a little bit of this probably sounds odd to most people, but they'll recognize some of it. There's a little bit of a beauty to death in the sense that if people could see what I see when those people are transitioning, it would bring them a lot of comfort to know. And I share it openly, and people have actually come back to me, and said, you were right. My mother visited me after she passed away, and she, turned a picture around, or she left a hair behind, or, whatever. But there is a beauty to it. There also, people have a tendency, when grandma starts talking to Uncle Joe, who passed away 5 years ago in the room, they start freaking out because they think that she's hallucinating, and here comes the nurse with the drugs to shut her up. So, but the thing is there's a window there that people miss out on getting to connect with the other side when the veil starts to efface between the dimensions. And when grandma's talking to Uncle Joe, ask Uncle Joe, hey, where'd you bury, your clock, or where'd you leave your so-and-so, or whatever. And he can answer her. He can answer through your grandma. So instead of running to get the drugs, take that time to touch base. So many people, they say, oh, I wish I could tell so-and-so one more time, or I wish I could say I was sorry, or I wish this. That is your opportunity, and you can get a response.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've always been intrigued with it. The cord between what's left of the living and those that have passed on and come forward to transition them over. That to me has always been a fascinating state of metaphysical activity that I would love to be able to dive in deeper on. I really would. One day I want to study it because I think it's amazing. Because you're right, there are a lot of family members that come in and they're sitting there going, why is she talking to the guy over by the wall that she says is there? There's nobody there. I mean, the family just doesn't get it, and it's really nothing but it's a matter of comfort, I believe. For the persons that are going and moving forward, it's a matter of comfort that somebody is there to transition them over, somebody they recognize, family members. It's my belief that it's usually a soul tie that actually is a person coming forward. It's a relative of some kind, something like that. And that to me is kind of the beginning of their metaphysical life. And then, after that, you get to do the things that we do, because what we do in life as paranormal investigators, that's obviously not normal. You know?
Well,
I mean,
but it's normal to us, but it's
oh
not
yeah,
normal to everybody else.
no, yeah, no, it's
Depends on
absolutely
what
wonderful.
Yeah, it depends
It's
on the circles that you hang out in. So we're good. This circle's okay.
yeah, but I've been there though. I've been at the office, and everyone's kind of hovered around a water cooler, and yeah, I'm standing there, and one of the guys says, "Hey, John, what are you going to do this weekend?" John says, "Well, I'm going to go fishing," and then, well, hey, Robert, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go hunting, and then, Rich, what are you going to do? I'm going to go talk to the dead.
All right.
That usually ends a lot of conversations, and I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. It's not a problem for me, but even to me, it's funny in this day and age, in this advancement in our recognition of the paranormal, that we still have those people that go, oh no, what are you talking about? Dead people? What? No, don't talk about that. It's just amazing to me,
Yeah.
And then you have folks like you to go out and write wonderful books about it. And you got to wonder how many closet fans of the paranormal are reading the book,
Yeah, a lot of my friends tell me that because they know me as a person, they know that I'm honest. They can't bring themselves to read the book because they're afraid, because it is true what is in it. So, but still, they still like me, and I just don't talk about it, when I'm with them, and
Yeah.
Hey, talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's couple things. First thing, in terms of being able to write these books and being able to speak your truth and talk about your experiences. Not only is it refreshing to people who have a belief to it, but it's also comforting to people who have experienced what you have experienced. Sometimes it's not always has to be a malevolent case. Bottom line, it opens doors for people for that communication to either get help, to be able to talk about their experiences, or to learn more about how to do the communication itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's almost important for people like us to be able to bring it forward. This is why Richard and I do what we do. We do it for the simple fact that we want to be able to support people, that we want people to come on to our chats and be able to ask questions and feel comfortable and not feel like they're being judged by things. Because for so long, it was such a negative thing.
Yes.
So, kudos to you for being able to put yourself and your name on that book. I don't think people realize how vulnerable you are when you, put your life on the line, essentially, and your integrity and your passion into something, and then people look at you, maybe looking at you differently. I was a closet psychic, I call it, for many years because I was afraid of that judgment. I'm no longer afraid, obviously, but I understand how vulnerable it can be when you're kind of stepping out into the limelight. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. Oops, I'm sorry, did I lose you? Here we go.
Yeah,
It's okay, you're still
there we go.
The main reason why I did write the books is after going through what I went through. And I mean, it's not like having in the middle of those problems, when I finally admitted it to myself, I'm trying to call the logical things, that opening up the yellow pages, going down the list of churches, trying to reach out for people to help me. And the doors kept shutting. I had people telling me to call the Catholics. I had people telling me that if I was attending their church, then I wouldn't be having that problem. I had people accusing me of being promiscuous because I was a single mother with kids. And of course, none of that was true either. So it's such, you can only approach people when you're in that predicament that actually know you well, to know that you're not crazy to begin with. And it's just, when you're in that situation, it's devastating and you're desperate. So you can be taken advantage of very, very easily by people that come in and say, oh, I can get your ghosts out. About $1,000. Well, you will pay that $1,000 just because you want to be able to get into your house. And in my case, I slept 2 nights in the house. That house was haunted so bad I was never able to move into the house.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lynn, let's rewind a little bit. Why don't you take us back to the experience? So, what happened? Why don't you tell these beautiful people, what happened? How did it all start?
Well, it all started, I went through a devastating divorce and had been living in a single-wide mobile home. an older one trying to rebuild my credit, and I did. So I got a realtor who drug me around for a year, having me trying to find houses on a single parent income, which was hard. And finally, this house, a colleague of hers in the office had come in. She had just taken pictures of the house and was getting ready to list it on the MLS. And my realtor calls me and she said, "You've got to come and see this house. This house is in your price range and it's really too good to be true." Well, of course, that part of it should have resonated with me, but I was so thrilled. So she and I met up within an hour and she drove me over to the house. I'm going through the papers with the pictures of the inside of the house and the outside. And I even had her call her colleague to make sure that the price was listed right. Because that house, I mean, it was on a dead end street on a Florida flat lot, which good luck finding one of those in South Carolina, and it was actually in North Carolina. It was in East Flat Rock, North Carolina. And, the size that it was 2,400 square feet. It was in a nice neighborhood. And so, she called and yes, sure enough, it was priced at the price that was on there. So when we pulled up, I'm of course looking around the neighborhood thinking there's got to be a dump or a stinky paper mill, or maybe it's in a bad area. I'm looking around, for the something to be going on there that's not desirable. So, but it wasn't. It was a normal suburban neighborhood. It was a mostly brick built house on a street with nice houses. It was built in 1976. And what I did find out during the process of it is it's not the age of the house, that a brand new house can also be haunted if it's built in the wrong place.
Right.
So,
Got it.
Yeah. And so, you don't know what you're sitting on that was there 500 years ago. But there were some problems with the house to start. There were two demons in the house and a young man that had hung himself in the home. It was verified by the next door neighbor. And I'm kind of jumping ahead because I know that we have a time limit here and I want to be able to answer some questions.
You got a full hour left. You're good.
Okay. All righty. So when the realtor and I got pulled into the house, it had beautiful double entry doors, and there was problems with the key and the lock. For some reason, there was one demon that seemed to dominate the hallway, the stairwell, and the lock all of the time. So originally, she went to try to unlock the door. She thought that maybe the keys that had been left in the lockbox were the wrong ones. And every time she'd go to try again, she'd say, "Well, I'm going to try one more time." And then finally the door would open. So she got the door open, obviously. And I went inside. And as I'm walking up the stairs from the foyer, I see out of my peripheral vision a young man hanging in the stairwell over the descending stairs. And of course, I gasped for a minute, but then of course, when I look directly at it, there's nothing there. And I'm like, these people what I was told the story is that they had relocated to another state, that they were motivated sellers because they had 2 mortgage payments to pay. And, that they did it for their work, which turned out not to be true. But anyway.
And it's never that true.
No, of course not. So
hindsight.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying hindsight's 2020. Like, you see it later, but red flag.
Yes, of course. And I was just so happy. I mean, was so proud to think as a single mother that I could provide such a nice home for my children and myself. So I went into the house. Of course, I liked it. A few things happened while we were there, but I ignored those things. And I asked if I could come back with my kids later that afternoon to make an offer on the house. And so I came back after school with my kids. And of course, they're running through the yard and running down the hallway, picking out their bedrooms. And I'm talking to the realtor, and come to find out that day somebody else had already made an offer on the house. So the pressure was on. I couldn't wait a day or two to think about it. I had to make an offer. And the kids asked if they could go downstairs. There was a lower level with a large family room that had a fully stone wall with a fireplace, and then a room like a 15-foot by 13-foot room that was next to it, as well as the garage. And my daughter was 13 at the time. My son was 7. And they went down. Excuse me? Okay.
You'll see me once in a while say hi to people coming in the room. It's okay. Go ahead.
And so they went downstairs, and within like 5 minutes they were back upstairs. And my daughter said to me, she said, "Mommy, I don't like this house. I do not want to move here." And I'm embarrassed because here's this realtor been dragging me around for a year, trying to help me find a house. And here's my teenage daughter saying that she doesn't like it. And of course, I'm thinking, oh, well, she's realizing now that we're going to have to move away from her friends and she might have to go to a different school. Anyway, I told her that it wasn't, her decision to make. And I, of course, then went ahead and made the bid, and I got the house. So on our very, very first night going over there, we were going to have a floor picnic with tacos, and the kids each took something to put into their room. And I'm cooking dinner, and my daughter comes into the kitchen and she said to me, "What did you want?" And I said, I didn't call you. And she said, "Yes, you did. You called me twice." She said, "And I answered you in between that I was coming, and you called me again." And I said to her, I said, "I heard you saying that you were coming, but I thought you were talking to your brother. I never called you." And so, and she said, "Yes, you did." We kind of went back and forth. And then my son comes in, he's peering under her arm, and he says too, "Mommy, I heard you call her." So here, just in that short time frame, it was mimicking my voice. It knew who we were, or by name. It knew that I was the mommy lady, and that my kids' names are the real names in the book, Brittany and Austin. I have 3. I had a third one after the incident. But I just rationalized it. I'm like, you know what? Brittany's a popular name. We're on a dead end street. Maybe it's dinner time. There's some other mother out calling her Brittany home to come and eat. And eventually, you'll meet this person and make good friends. So they were okay with that. But then we packed up and we left. I was doing some of the pulling up of the carpet in the house myself to save money so that I could get a better grade of flooring. And being a single mom, I was on a budget. So I went back the next day and I continued to pull up carpeting. But when I got there, I went upstairs and I put my purse down on the counter, and the oven light, the inside of the oven light was on. The light over the stove was on. I mean, and there was no furniture yet in the house. Every single light that was there could have been turned on was turned on in that house. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a new house to me. Maybe things are on a timer. Maybe a neighbor was entrusted with a key and came in after we left last night. The house sold so fast, they really didn't even have time to put a for sale sign in the front yard. So, I'm rationalizing it again, so I go across the street to the neighbors and I introduced myself and I said, "Do you know if anybody's been entrusted with a key?" And I said, "I went over today and all the lights were on in the house." I said, "Did you notice any lights on in the house?" And they had made mention that they had taken a walk that evening, and the only lights that they noticed were the ones in the walkway, which were solar lights. And I asked, well, did maybe a realtor or somebody come by, that had a key to go in that maybe didn't realize it was sold because everything happened so fast? And, they said no. So I went back, turned the lights off, continued to get the carpeting pulled up, and finally finished in the living room, left to get my kids. So I wanted to come back and put a fresh coat of paint. And I just want to say this too. I purchased the house in March, and because there was only 8 weeks of school left, I didn't want to have papers transferred and get lost. So I wanted to do some renovations on the house and move in the summer. So my kids stayed in their schools. I commuted back and forth and continued to have people, come attempting to get them to stay to do the renovations. 3 of them never came back, but I'll tell you about that. The 4th one stayed finally. So the next day, actually that day I was leaving and I had trouble with the lock in the door. I'm pulling it, trying to get the deadbolt to turn. And finally I just reached my hand in and did the knob lock and pulled it shut. And I left. So next morning, drop off my kids, come back to the house, and I go to put my key in and the door just opens. I didn't turn it. It just opened. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe I didn't have it all the way in the door jamb, and that's why it wouldn't lock, and it pushed open. But then when I went into the house, I had the ceiling paint with me because I was going to paint the ceiling, and I went to open the sliding glass doors, and the sliding glass door, the little key thing was dangling to the side and it was unlocked. And I thought, well, maybe one of the kids ran back and I just didn't notice. So then I went down to the garage. I had been had unloaded boxes the day before, was unloading and wanted to unload more boxes, and it had like a workshop in the area of the garage, and I was packing everything up against the door of the, like the walk-in door of the garage. And when I went down there, the garage door was also unlocked. And I'm like, well, I'm a girl. I'm used to having that clicky thing on my visor, and I've never had to lock a garage door before. So maybe I unlocked it and thought that I locked it. So I let that go. But when I looked over at the door, the chain was dangling to the side. And I thought to myself, there is no way that could have gotten unlocked by itself. Somebody had to have been inside of this house and moved the boxes out of the way that I had stacked up there, because I'm 5'9". They were at chin level and arm's length, and then unlock the door and put everything back. So back to the neighbors I go. I asked them, I said, all the doors were unlocked when I came over today. Did you see any kids playing in the yard? Did anybody come by after we left last night? And the lady that lived at the house, she said, listen, I'm not trying to be a nosy neighbor, but I was doing my dishes at around the time that you left. And you even doubled back from your car to shake the doorknob because you were having trouble with it. And I had forgotten about doing that. So it was locked. So anyway, I gave them my number. I told them, I said, if you notice anybody in the driveway or pulling up and I'm not here, I want you to call the police. And then call me. I'll be here in 25 minutes.
I've got to ask a question.
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I got to ask a question. Because I know it's burning in several of the viewers' minds right now. So how long had you, before this incident, had paranormal experiences?
I grew up in a haunted house. We were 4 short blocks from a hospital, and next door to that was a nursing home. So my siblings and I are all empaths, and we would see people in patient gowns walking through the house, and Indians also, because there were burial mounds on the other side of that hospital. But growing up in the time that I did, it was the late 60s, early 70s. I'm going to be 59 this birthday. It'll be my last.
We won't tell anybody. We won't tell anybody. It's okay.
I swear I heard you say 29.
I heard you say 29.
I like
Yeah.
you. I like you.
Yeah.
So, because everything was about what the Joneses thought, that was the term. They didn't want to have the fact that their kids were seeing things to get out in the neighborhood, because you'd be labeled real quick. And then I was born and raised Presbyterian. Then my mother did a stint with the Jehovah's Witnesses for a little while, which I was 10 years old at the time. And of course I was still seeing people walking in the house. And there was an incident with my brother in the bedroom and a friend of his that passed away that both of us saw at the same time. And my mother took me to the elders of the church. And after the talking to that I got from them, I was so frightened of even that I would deny what I saw. I started to deny it. I would rationalize it. I would change my thought. I would ignore it. So I got used to rationalizing and ignoring a lot of what I was seeing throughout my lifetime. So when I went to this house, I was rationalizing what I was seeing, because I was used to seeing things, but I didn't talk about them anymore. I learned to keep my mouth shut. But this particular house, I wasn't able to keep my mouth shut because other people were. Yeah, other people were seeing them too. So it wasn't just me. And that's how.
That's crazy. And this was North Carolina?
It was in East Flat Rock, North Carolina. I came up from Florida. I'm originally born and raised in Florida. Moved up to North Carolina when I was 35 and saw snow for the first time. But I was totally unaware that whole area in East Flat Rock was haunted. And like Katie was mentioning earlier, about I have never received any hate mail. I have never received anybody coming at me.
Fantastic.
To attack me. I've received tons of mail, people begging for help for these issues.
How beautiful is that?
Yes. And I've had a lot of people approach me, to tell me their stories. So I didn't know that that whole area of East Flat Rock was haunted. I mean, everything is haunted there. So,
Wow.
Which I found out, talking to a lady who had 2 experiences with a house in East Flat Rock after the fact, which is in my second book. But yes, that whole area, people have even written books, from what I understand, about, that area being haunted. And so, yeah. You couldn't give me a house in East Flat Rock and plus $1 million. I surely am not moving there. There's no
Right.
way.
We have a question. Jeremy York asks, he says, forgive me if this has already been mentioned, but has history of the house or land been done? So as you had mentioned, Lynn, the whole area had been haunted. There had been much going on, but did you ever find out, maybe I'm getting ahead of the story, did you ever find out why specifically those demonic entities decided to encroach on that property, specifically yours?
Yes. The very last person that I had come to do a clearing in the house was a woman that was Native American, and she was doing a ritual. And the thing was, is she brought a friend with her, a male friend with her. And when they pulled into the driveway, she got out of the car and she looked at the house and looked at the house across the street. And she said, if your house had been built 3 feet over from where it was, it wouldn't be haunted. And she said, and I bet that house over there is haunted and the one behind it is haunted too. And just let me say this, in the 8 months that I owned the house, coming and going there and not living there, the house that she pointed at was a rental, and it literally had 3 families move in and out in that 8 months. So something was going on with that house, So she said she started to talk about ley lines and some kind of tunneling that they were doing, and that the house where it was built interrupted that in some way. And that's kind of how she explained it to me. And yeah. So yes. And also I did have a paranormal group come up from Georgia that was led by Andrew Calder. He's an Episcopalian priest, and he has since passed away. But he did the EMF, is it EMF, EVP readings. We got pictures of the ghosts in the house at the time. He came in the night ahead of the blessing, so that he could see what type of entity he was up against as far as that goes, and did an all-day blessing the next day on the house. But those were some of the things that I was learning in the process. So
what I think is interesting is I'm watching Brian. Brian made a comment here a moment ago. We've had this funny phenomena happen the last couple of shows we've been on. Brian is saying that he's actually catching EVPs as the show is going on.
Yes.
It happens with us for some reason.
Yes. And
pretty crazy lately.
It is. And I'm sure you find also when people send you emails for help. I had somebody send me an email for help with pictures of the orbs and the misting in the house. This person had demons in the house, and I could feel them attacking me through the computer and tapping on the wall. And I could feel that attack while I was trying to help this person who was on the other side of the United States the best that I could. But yes, that's true. And they can affect your computer and things like that. I load mine up with fluorite, but anyway, just to clear that negative.
I got a couple rocks around.
Yeah.
Got a couple rocks going on. Okay, so Lynn, so you move into this house. For those of you just joining, you moved into the house. You're getting ready to kind of you're freshening up. You're painting. You're making it your own. Mm-hmm. The neighbors notice movement. You're noticing movement. What happens next?
Okay, well, and again, we didn't actually get to move in the house. It was that bad. So we decided, everything started to amp up when we spent the night. We spent 2 nights there. The first night that we went, my daughter brought along a friend of hers. They were both named Brittany. So anyway, the 2 Brittany's, and to do a sleepover. And at around 3 o'clock in the morning, the girl wanted to go home. I mean, how many 13-year-olds at a sleepover want to go home at 3 o'clock in the morning? Apparently, she had gone into the kitchen to get some Oreos, and coming out of the kitchen, something spooked her, and she wouldn't even go to the bathroom without having my daughter along. So I had her call her parents because we were 25 minutes away, and it was a school night too. So, I was going to drop her off at school the next morning, and but after talking to her parents, she agreed to stay, but she didn't sleep. She stayed awake all that night. So my kids were also seeing things and not saying anything about it. My dog would not go into the house, which comes up with the second sleepover that we did. I had brought queen size blow up mattresses and a little TV for my kids to watch their VHS on. And so when we went to the house, my dog would not go into the house. I finally had to carry her into the house. There was an event that happened downstairs while she was with my children, that when she came upstairs, she was shivering in the doorway of the kitchen, and I thought she was cold. So I wrapped her up in a towel because that's all I had, and she wouldn't take her eyes off me. But so many rooms had been started and not finished, and I wanted to go have one room finished. So I decided while we were there that I was just going to knock out the master bathroom, paint the ceiling, paint the walls, be done with it in a couple of hours. My kids had drugged their mattresses into my bed, into the master bedroom. And so I went ahead and I painted and finished. And about 11 o'clock, I went to the kitchen to clean up my paintbrushes. And when I came out of that kitchen, there was wrought iron railing so that you wouldn't fall into the descending stairs. And this demon came swiftly up from the lower level and went across the double entry doors, shooting up the ascending stairs and then down the hallway. And I froze, and I'm like, what on earth is that? The thing was up on its haunches. I'm 5'9". It was just a little bit shorter than me, like about 5'7". It had a narrowing to its nose with large openings like horse nares, open holes that took up almost all of the end of the face. It was a brown, dull color. It had ears like a rabbit, but they were on each side of its head like the FTD man, and they were turned backwards, glazing over the shoulders because it was kind of hunched over. And I was beyond wetting my pants. I was frozen, solid. And I'm thinking to myself, and again, here all my life, I've been rationalizing some of these things that I've seen. So I'm like, okay, it's late. I've been breathing fumes. It might be a little low blood sugar. Maybe a bicycle or motorcycle drove under a light outside. So, but then all of a sudden I hear my dog, and she is ferociously growling. And I'm like, what on earth, So that kind of popped me out of my funk of the moment of trying to rationalize this horrific monster that I just saw in my house. So I went down to the master bedroom, and she is fixated on that door. When I'm coming in, she is standing there, she's a little schnauzer with a little German stance, and her hair was up on the back of her back. And she, even as I passed her to come in the door, she still stood there and just was growling at the door. And I pet her, and she put her ears back for a minute, but then she continued to just be upset and growling at that door. So I took her outside. Thought maybe she had to go to the bathroom, brought her back in. I had to carry her back into the house, and I laid down with the kids to go to sleep. And the next morning we wake up, and I asked my daughter, I said, how did you sleep, last night? And she said, I didn't. She said, I felt like something was standing in the doorway staring at us all night long. And I have to say this, my son the night before took a bath, and he had on his little, I don't remember, Bob the Builder or something. They were pajamas, but they were shorts with a short sleeve top. And he didn't have any marks or anything on him. These would have been visible. But when he woke up that morning, he had bite marks on his legs. In 3 different places. They were purple. They looked like dog bite marks, but they were smaller than the mouth size that my dog would have done. And I asked him, I said, oh my God, I said, Austin, You know, you've got bite marks. I mean, somebody to get bite marks that are that purple, you would feel it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and Austin's looking at them and he's touching them and he says, I don't know. You know, he didn't know. And I'm like, well, you know, he had that Toy Story dinosaur with teeth. And I'm like, did you do that with your dinosaur? But that wasn't even with us. So, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, you know, so I left, didn't go back for a couple of days. I went to work, and I started to feel a little foolish. You know, it's such a nice house, and he must have, you know, fell down and they were delayed bruising or something. You know, I kept rationalizing things, but so things also happened. I had 4 different workers that I was trying to have do renovations in the house. The first 2 disappeared, but their reasoning for disappearing was kind of normal. One had another job, another person had a family member that had been in the hospital, but that guy didn't even come back and get his DeWalt tools. So anyway, the third guy was a friend of mine's cousin, and I actually got to find out what was happening in the house at that time. That they were there. And of course, the fourth guy was stoned all the time. So he carried his minions on his back. He had Argons and a whole fan club. So he didn't notice them, but he did good work. So, and as long as he didn't do it around my kids, I didn't care. I needed the work done
Right.
so I could sell the house. So
he must have renovated a lot of haunted houses. You know, he knows the drill, right?
That's right. So
yeah, get stoned before you go in.
Yeah, that's right. They like that. They'll hang out with you. So it just I called him Bobby in the story. Bobby and I were both in the house the afternoon, and he was putting the wooden flooring down in my son's bedroom, and I was in the hallway just outside of the doorway painting the walls. And I turn and I can see the stairwell, and there is this young man walking up the ascending stairs towards the floor that we were on, and he was as solid as I'm looking at you. I can tell you, he had blue jeans on, he had a white Oxford shirt, brown parted down the middle hair, kind of 80s style kind of thing, and he had like rosacea or acne or like ruddiness to his face. And I turned and I said, did you knock? You know, I thought, you know, this guy must be disoriented. What is he doing walking in here? Maybe he knocked and I didn't hear him. And of course, Bobby answers, no, maybe I dropped something. You know, he thought I was talking to him. And then when I looked directly at the stairs, there was nothing there other than there was like a wavering in the air. Sometimes spirits, the way that I see them, when they're up close, I can see them better at a distance. But when they come up closer, it looks like a waffling to the air or like gas fumes. Kind of,
almost like a heat signature where you see heat from the pavement. Yep, I understand.
Yeah, it's like a haze off the hot tar. Yeah.
Yes, and that wavering thing. So I knew then that the house was haunted, that there was a spirit in the house. So I left that day to go pick up my kids at school, and I'm sitting in the car line, and I get a call from Bobby. And he says, I have to leave right now. There's something weird about this house that I've never experienced before in my life, and the line drops. So I try to call him. I'm trying to reach him. Finally, about an hour, 30 minutes later, I get a hold of him and I said, what happened? You know, why couldn't, you know, I really need you to finish this. I've got them moving in furniture here in another 2 weeks or so. And he, you know, he says, oh, it was nothing, but I'd really rather be there when you're there. So he didn't really want to say, you know, why he didn't. And of course, he never came back. So I ran into my friend at work a couple of weeks after that. And I said to her, I said, would you please ask Bobby what happened in the house? I have a feeling that it's something to do with paranormal. And so she did, you know, she asked him, and he started to talk about that he, you know, he said that house is words that I can't say on this radio show, but it starts with an F. And he said that house is messed up. He said, he was sitting in my son's room, putting down the flooring. He was sitting on like a little bench for like a gardening bench. And he had his trowel and his mallet and his block to tap it in. It was tongue and groove flooring. And he said that all of a sudden he went to reach for his tools and they weren't there. So he thought that he rode over them. And he turned and he looked, and over by the door, they were lined up right in front of the door, paralleling each other. And he's like, wait a minute, I didn't do that. Lynn must have come back and, is playing a joke on me. Somebody, she must have snuck in here quietly and moved the tools. And when I was putting the whatever, so he got up from the chair, he yelled down the hallway. He was looking for me, thinking that I, had been there, and it spooked him. So he turned on the light, and he had a radio that was battery operated with him that he turned on, and he sits back down with the tools now to put in the next piece of flooring. And he said that the light turned itself off, then the radio turned itself off, and then he hears the tools scooting behind him, and they lined up exactly as they were when he had gone and picked them up before. And he said that he couldn't get out of the house fast enough. So on that day, when he left so fast that windows were left open. Some of them didn't have screens on them because, they were being cleaned, but he opened them because of the fumes and stuff. But anyway, I ended up having to go back that night to secure the house. It was on a Friday. I worked a Baylor shift on the weekend, so I wouldn't have a chance to go back there until like that Monday or Tuesday. So I asked him, I said, did you secure the house at least when you left? And he says, no, I'm sorry. I left the windows and stuff open. So I asked my friend Ellen, who lived next door to me, I said, would you mind going with me to help me? Because there was an air conditioner. The windows were the kind that you would crank and they would open like this. They didn't.
Yep, I have those.
Yeah. So it had a really odd shaped air conditioner in the one window, and I needed help pulling that out because it was on the second floor. So on the way there, I was talking to her and I said, do you believe in ghosts? And she said, oh yeah, hell yeah, I believe in ghosts. And I said, well, I told her about the man that I saw on the stairs. I said, I think there's a ghost in the house. You don't have to go in with me if you don't want to. I'll have the neighbor's husband come and help me, but I really appreciate you going with me because it was dark, and I didn't, so anyway, she said, oh, no, I don't mind going in with you. So of course, when we got there, I had the stuck key problem, that the realtor originally did before, and I couldn't get it to turn. And finally, when I got it open, I'm struggling to get the key back out. I almost broke the key off in the lock. But I'm struggling to get it out. And my friend Ellen goes into the foyer and she's standing there and she makes a joke. And she says, you're not going to leave me here and let the boogeyman get me, are you? Well, they targeted her. She mocked them. They targeted her. We went inside. We pulled in the air conditioner. I was doing my daughter's room in a wild horse theme. So I had these carved horse heads to put the valance over, and Ellen was holding one in each hand in the kitchen. She was standing right next to me, and we heard this sound that I had heard before when there was a second demon that when I got to experience that one, the sound that came into the room, and it sounded like a didgeridoo, like a wah, 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 but it had a static to it also. Yep. And there was this fog, this basement smelling fog, like wall almost moving in on us. And of course I didn't say anything, and Ellen's back was to the fog thing coming into the room. And I thought that I was the only one that could hear the sound. And all of a sudden Ellen says, what's that sound? And I said, oh, remember I told you, that I think that the house is haunted and we'll be leaving in a minute. And all of a sudden she dropped the horse heads on the counter and started screaming. What is it? What is it? Is it a spider bite? She says, something's burning on my back. She says, she's trying to pull her t-shirt around to look at it, to see if there's a bug or a spider or something it was burning her horribly. And I lifted up her shirt, and let me tell you, I would fight God for my children. I don't know a parent that would not. But I swear on my children's lives, what I'm telling you is the truth. And you can believe it or not. She had a 4-inch claw mark between her shoulder blades that was also partially under her bra strap. And that thing was just newly welting and beating blood. It looked like a cat scratch. It was one single claw mark that was there. And as a nurse, I knew it was a fresh wound because that's a response that a fresh wound does. Even if you pick the scab off, it doesn't do that welting thing again. So I asked her, I said, Ellen, what, did you scratch yourself on the car door getting out? Keep in mind, there's still no furniture in the house. And she said, no, I didn't. And then she started screaming again. And she said, it got me again. It got me again. And it clawed her on her stomach below her belly button off to the side. So I told her, I said, go to the car. I'll lock, I'll follow you and I'll lock the door. But of course, I wasn't going to spend much time fussing with the door and locking everything up because I figured at that point the house could take care of itself if anybody wanted to break in. But it just
right.
so we went ahead and we left, and that was when I started reaching out for untraditional help. I started calling paranormal groups. I started, trying to. I'm like, okay, there's a problem in the house, but I'm sure something can be done about it. Because here I am I already have a mortgage. I've signed on the line. Most people would say to me, oh, well, if it was me, I'd have been out of there. Well, you can't just walk off.
It's not that simple. Exactly.
It was mine. So I was determined to, try to do things to get the house cleared so that we could actually move into it. And of course, I had multiple religions come over and things like that. And finally, when the Episcopalian priest came over, the Presbyterian minister that was that I knew from the church also was there at that time, helping with the blessing that absolutely took all day. And then I was told that I could go back. And in the interim of this, I didn't take my kids anymore. After Ellen got clawed, didn't take the kids back anymore. They weren't allowed to go there because I didn't want to expose them to that problem. But anyway, I forgot where it was. Oh, so the priest comes over, he clears the house. He says that we can go back. And so I take my kids back, and my son this time brings a friend, and I'm in the garage and I'm getting ready to mow the grass. I'm putting gasoline in the lawnmower, and the little boy that was visiting Zachary came down, and he's grabbing his neck and he's like wincing. And I'm like, what's the matter? I thought maybe, he fell down or got whacked with a stick or something. They were sword fighting. And he said, no, I don't know. He said, I got to the bottom stair and something just hit me and it burns. And he was holding his neck, and I checked the spot, and of course there was nothing there, but then he started to retch. And the retching was a dead giveaway to me because my mother would retch. The nausea would overtake her when she was attacked demonically. So I got him to the car, and I called my kids. I said, it's time to go. Don't come in down through the lower stairs. Come out the front door. And of course, my son was already outside, so he just came to the car. But my daughter came down the stairs. She didn't hear me say that part. And when she got to the bottom stair, she grabbed her ankle and she's like, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, something, I didn't twist my ankle. I didn't anything, but it's burning. And she could hardly bear weight on it and to get her to the car. And so I closed up everything and we got in the car and we left. And of course, as we're getting down the road, the kids are, feeling a little bit better, getting away from it all. But I got on the phone when I got home, and I called up that priest, and I said, look, those things are not gone. My kid's friend just got attacked today. My daughter got attacked today. I said, they're not gone. I am selling that house. And they minister, the priest was like, well, you need to keep your house, and you need to command them to leave in the name of Jesus Christ. And I said, look, I am a single woman. It's one thing to have to deal with criminals at large. It's another thing to have to deal with things that you can't see. I said, what kind of a mother would I be when my children come to me at night and say, I have something under my bed or in my closet? And they might really have something, and they can't come in and get protection from me because we'd be huddled in the bed while the sheets were getting pulled off. So, I told him, I said, I cannot do that, to my children. So I went ahead and I did put the house up for sale. And of course, a lot of other things happened. Like I said, there was the second demon with an incident, and there's just so much more that happened. But So I put it up for sale by owner. I had the fourth guy come and finish up the renovations. And I had a young couple that had called with children. And I was in the house when I made the appointment for them to come the next day. So the next day, my mom and I come an hour early. We're going to set some staging in the house for the people to come. And when we got out of the car, we were walking up the walkway. And my mom said to me, she said, Lynn, did you tint your windows? And I'm like, no, why? And I looked up at the windows, and the whole window was black. But then when I looked to the lower windows, they were covered in flies. I mean, like they were speckled on the flies on the lower ones, but upstairs they were so solid. They were almost like moving like 3D. And so I said to my mom, I said, oh my God, I said, those are flies. Now we did not leave any food there, no cleaning supplies. The house was spotless. The toilet was flushed. There was nothing to draw those flies in there. And so when my mom and I went in there, we expected to be swarmed. But fortunately, all of the flies were all over the windows because they wanted out too. So, and of course, they had been in there a while because they had left excrement all around the window on the molding around the window. So there were even 3 windows in that breakfast nook area that were painted shut from the outside. And I had to remove the screens off of those windows to usher those flies into the house so that we could get them out the back sliding door in the kitchen window that would open. And the thing is those screens, there were no flaws. They were in good condition, no holes. So I don't even know how they got between there. And these were big flies. There were no maggots, no evidence of hatchlings, nothing. These were, I mean, hundreds of thousands of flies in that house. So my mother and I, we're trying to get these flies out, and these people are coming in on top of us in a short time. And fortunately, they had called and left a message that they needed to reschedule. And I didn't get that message until about 20 minutes after I realized they were late, about 20 minutes. I went and looked at my phone and found where they had called and left the message. And so when my mom and I got in the car to leave, I rescheduled them for again the next day. This time I wasn't in the house doing it. The first time they heard me scheduling it, so they created this problem. So my mom and I go 2 hours early this time. And we're going to make sure that there's no problems at the house. And so we got there and there was no problems. There were no flies or anything. But then the young couple came. They had 3 children. The oldest one was not with them, so the 2 littler ones were. And of course, they were running through the house the same way mine did, picking out their bedrooms. And then they came and they asked if they could go downstairs. And, gave them permission to do that. And again, they were back up in about 5 minutes. Looked like deers in headlights. And I hear the little girl say to the other little boy, Tommy can have the creepy room downstairs. I'll take the little room upstairs. So I realized in that moment that I could not bring myself to sell it to a family with children. I couldn't do it. So I ended up selling it to a couple from Florida that came up. They were using it as a retirement home. And there was one incident in the house that the wife was coming down the stairs to the foyer. I was ahead of them. I exited out the double doors and I overhear her saying to her husband, "Why did you push me?" And he's like, "I didn't push you." She says, "Yes, you did." And he said, "No, I'm 3 steps back from you. I can't even reach you to push you." And she said, "Well, I don't know what happened." And of course, I knew what happened. So my conscience got the best of me. And I'm like, I've got to tell him. I'm going to tell him, I may lose the sale on the house, but I have to be honest. So they came out and I said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And they both immediately cut me off. They said, "No, we are Baptist. We don't believe in that sort of thing. We don't discuss that sort of thing. And we are protected." And I'm like, well, okay.
Well, I have a house for you.
Yes, exactly.
And when you're done, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Or
So
burn.
here's a couple of things real quick, Lynn. Okay. Number one, you're going to have to understand I will never buy a house with you. That's what's going to happen. Number two, I'm going to need somebody to rock me to sleep tonight because like I'm sitting here listening to the story like, oh Christ. Now what book, so that the viewers know, and we're going to talk about it a little bit further because we are actually running out of time. It's kind of funny. What book is this house in?
This book is in Omnipresent, the first book, up to the sale of the house. And then it goes into the second book. And just let me say this. When I was writing The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End, and I got to the part where I had to talk about souls that do not cross over, it kind of took a little bit more of a dark turn. And I didn't want to have, it didn't mix well with the beautiful afterlife story. So that's why I went ahead and I wrote Omnipresent, What Happened Next, to talk about the souls that don't cross over. And those are the ones that haunt your houses. But anyway, in that story, I actually went by the house 6 months later, and those people had a for sale sign in their front yard. They couldn't stay there either, and I drove down the street. It was a dead-end street, so I had to pass it twice, and the neighbors across the street had put a huge Archangel Michael angel statue in their front yard facing the house. And so as I'm driving, leaving the street, heading for the stop sign to turn off the road, my radio blares full blast and I could not get it to turn off. I mean, I left skid marks. I got off that street so fast because I didn't want anybody, to notice me. And then the radio shuts itself off just as I'm getting around the curve on the corner. But with that being said, I went back into the county records and I thought, the people that sold the house to me turned out they only lived there for 6 months out of the year that they owned it, couldn't stay there. I couldn't stay there. The people that I sold it to, and I'm assuming that they left because it was haunted. It might have been something else, but this was supposed to be their retirement home. It was a cash buy. They paid cash for that house. So it seemed odd that it would be, back up for sale 6 months later. So I'm assuming that it was because of that. So I wanted to know what happened with the people that I bought it from. So I went through the records and I found about 6 people with the same name, and I sent out some snail mail, and lo and behold, I did. I got a call back from the guy that I bought the house from. And I asked him, I said, while you were living in your house, did anything peculiar happen? And he says, what do you mean by peculiar? And I said, well, the house is haunted. Haunted? Really? And I said, yes, the house is haunted. And he says, well, I think you need to talk to my wife. So he agreed to have her call me, and I waited, and I didn't think she was going to call, but she finally did call, and she was crying and apologetic. And the thing about her was, in the closing of the house, when the closing with me, when I was there, she would not look me in the eye. She stared at her feet the whole time. And she told me on the phone she told me on the phone that she and her husband, they were 2 hours late to that closing. And they were late because they were fighting, because when she found out that I had children, she didn't want to sell the house to me either, because they had a 4 and a 6-year-old. And so there's more to that story, but I know that we are on limited time. But that book also touches on mental illness and attachments and some things with my ability to see that I can have seen many schizophrenic clients. Being a nurse, I went back to further my education, had to do rotations through, of course, maternity and the psychiatric areas and all of those things. And in those areas, I was able to see people with the attachments on their back that were hearing voices. So there's a whole section on that in there. There's a section about drug addiction and why some people innocently fall into that, and what happens, with people that choose not to cross over at the time that they pass. They can choose not to cross over. What happens with that they still have the cause of death that shows. They still have emotions. They still have addictions. They still have, a lot of things that way that leave them when they cross over. But because they're staying earthbound, they still have all of that. And, and the thing is if people could see what I see when I walk into like a sports bar or, at work, everybody's on their cigarette break. I don't smoke, but passing by, all of the dead people standing around them, just trying to get into the fumes of their drink or their cigarette, because they're addicted still, because the addiction stays with them too. I mean, old habits die hard. You know, some guy's at a peep show, an adult place, and he thinks he's having a moment alone, and he's got a whole fan club in there watching the movies with him. So, you know, really old habits die hard. And I think, you know, people, if they were aware and could see what I would see, they would be very leery about, you know, some of their habits. And of course, Richard and I had talked about too, you know, clearing houses, and how, you know, you get the house clear, but because people don't change their behavior, sometimes it rolls out a red carpet for the minions to come right back because of their habits. And so, you know, it's not just a matter of clearing out houses. People have to change some of what they're doing to make it stick. So, but there's that in the book. And in both of my books, they're unique in the fact that they have a self-help section in the back. One explains how to get pictures to determine what type of entities you have in your house. And the other one has a couple of things that you can do to get spirits out, not demons, but spirits. Demons are a beast, a different beast. You know, don't use sage on demons. It really upsets them.
Like poking the bear.
It is. Yes,
so,
exactly.
So Lynn, I'm going to ask on behalf of everybody. We've got a lot of people in the comments are asking, where might we find your book? Where can we go internationally to purchase said book?
Okay, it's my website is www.lynnmonet.com. I'm requesting that you buy them from me. Now, the first book is everywhere: Walmart, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, they all have it. The second two books, The Colors of Heaven and also What Happened Next, is being sold through my website only. I have GoDaddy and PayPal, so everything is secure that way. I've had a lot of people, because of selling through Amazon, that have stolen the book. I've had people set up Venmo accounts in my name. I've had people put in East Africa, most recently in the Himalayas, somebody actually put their picture over my picture and started printing the book. So I can only guarantee that you will get a book if you buy it from me. I would hate to have somebody pay somebody a scammer money. Even my LinkedIn account, somebody put a picture in with, my real name, and the owner of Lynn Monet Omnipresent. So there are a lot of people trying to pretend that they're me just to take money. But if you buy it through me, I can guarantee that you will get your book.
Now, I will say, this is kind of it's a really rough piece to read. The experiences are pretty rough. But, for those that are not into going out and experiencing this stuff on their own, it's going to make a great read. Again, I'm still going to need somebody to rock me to sleep tonight. I don't know how many times I've asked for that now. I've not heard yes to it yet, but okay. But it's great to hear you. Like I said, I've done a couple of books myself, and that people don't realize what has to go into that. It's not just a matter, I'll just sit down for a couple hours and write out an entire novel. No, doesn't work that way. How long, though? I got a question for you. And again, guys, go to her website and get a book. But I have a question for you. How long a period of time from your first experience in that house to the time you sold it? How long a period of time are we talking about?
It was 8 months. And something I'd like, it was 8 months. And again, keep in mind that I wasn't moving in there. I bought it in March. I was going to move in the summer. But so much happened, before that I ended up not moving in. And I'd like to say, too, that when I was writing the book, the script literally disappeared twice. I had to rewrite the book 3 times. So, the word didn't want to get out there, but I was pretty determined to do that. I really wanted the awareness level to be heightened. And the Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End book is not creepy. There's nothing creepy in it. There's a beautiful story about death and dying that I hope truly to take the stigma of death away for people, and also to bring a lot of comfort to people with terminal illness or people that have actually, have lost a loved one.
So
And that's
if
coming out the end of this month. Woohoo!
there you go.
Fantastic. We'll have to have you back. We'll have you back. We'll talk
Yeah,
about
we'll
it.
have to have you
I would
back.
love
Okay.
that.
Now, let me ask a question. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
I'm still answering my own emails at this time, so you can get a hold of me through the lynnmonet.com. There's an area on there that you can click on to actually contact me, and I will respond.
Okay. Well,
That's awesome.
I'm gonna tell you, it's been a real interesting listen. I mean, it's almost like you were doing an
Yeah.
audio book for us. It was great.
Well,
I got the goosebumps a few times, so
Yeah.
you affected me. That's for damn sure.
Well, you
Well,
got the raised eyebrow from me a couple of times. That's always a good
Yeah.
thing.
Well, there is a need out there. So many people have contacted me since, and I wish that I could be everywhere. Most of them are too. If they're close by, I'll go help them. I'd help them for free. There is a huge need out there for this kind of thing. And people, there's nowhere to turn. They don't know where to turn when something like that is happening. So, yeah.
I'll tell you something interesting. I was approached about a year or so ago. I was approached by a local realtor company.
Mhm.
And I took the meeting, and I'm sitting down, and the thing that comes out of their mouth is that we would like to contract you
Mhm.
to cleanse the homes that we're having problems selling because, sorry, not sorry, they're haunted. So I'm like, no, you're still going to have to tell the people that it was haunted at one time. No,
Mhm.
no. I mean, that's just only fair. But I thought it was
Mhm.
interesting that a real estate company had gone that far in the need, understanding the need to reach out to me to do it. And they
Mhm.
just had too many properties that were, active. And
Mhm.
it was just interesting that, yeah, it's kind of hush hush, but it's still, as you said, it's got to get out.
Mhm.
It's
Well,
I
got to get
actually,
out.
in my old life, I ran a real estate office. I was a real estate agent, and in our books, when I was studying, it's something that has to be disclosed. If it is still considered a haunted location, it has to be disclosed in the
really?
paperwork. Yes, unless it has been cleansed or rectified. And so there's a lot of people, in my area that slowly, silently, and stealthily try to sell it because of that. It's interesting, and I think one of the big morals of the story, is that situations like yours don't go away overnight. A lot of people think that if you just leave the location, if you just leave the house, if you just leave, that it can potentially follow you. I've dealt with a few demonic cases that stuck around for months. Even though you were not at said disclosed location, it's still around. And so, it's one thing people say, oh, just sell the house, just move. But you don't understand. There are tentacle-like grips that can happen, and you can be affected for the rest of your life. So, again, it's a scary thing.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. And it was very, very fortunate that I had somewhere else to go. I think that we would have been more affected if we had actually had to sleep there and stay
Mhm.
there. And I'd like to say this, the cover of the book Omnipresent is an actual event that happened in the house while my son was sitting on the master bathroom toilet. And those hands were coming, those creepy hands were coming in at him. And to this day, he is 23 years old, and after experiencing that, he had such post-traumatic stress that he will not sleep without a light on. After experiencing that, even still, but they should be disclosing it more for people. But in my case, the house sold so many times, and it was then repoed by a bank at one point. I mean, they did the background work. Somebody had asked before when the paranormal group came up from Georgia, and I mean, it had sold. It had been through so many people, they couldn't even tell how old the roof was, so they didn't know. I had to find out about the young man hanging himself in the stairwell by the next door neighbor who had been the first house on the street before they even paved the road. He remembered the house being built and the family that moved in there, and that the kid hung himself in the stairwell and the mom came home and found him. So that's how
And
I
you have to
verified
ask.
that.
and you have to ask yourself why. A lot of suicide wreaks havoc because of demonic entities. Essentially, they're trying to get you to relinquish your soul, relinquish, your power. And I've done a lot, I've worked on a lot of cases and as well as done clearings and readings, and that is the case. And it's their prisoner in that home along with that dark energy. So, it's something that's scary. It doesn't go away overnight.
Nope, you're right. I was fortunate, though, like I said, to go home because there were no problems in the single wide that I had been living in. And fortunately, nothing did follow me that time. But people would try to blame me, like I said, being a single mother with children, that I was promiscuous. And I said, no, it's not me. It's that house. I don't have any problems in the other house that I was going into.
I'm trying to think of how do they get promiscuity and paranormal?
Well, because when they heard that I was a single mother, they assumed that I was, having a revolving door with men in my house, and that my behavior was what was drawing the demons in. So they turned it around and they gaslighted me and blamed it on me. So, and I understood that they were afraid too. They didn't have an answer for it, and they didn't want to get involved because they didn't know. So.
Well, welcome to the South. It was kind of a culture shock for me when I moved down here from New York. I lived in New York, and that's where I was on the police department and everything up there. And I came down here, and don't talk about the paranormal in some places because it'll get you all kinds of titles that you don't earn. I've been called a demon chaser. I've been called everything under the sun. And it's just the misguided education some people have gotten.
That is so true. And
from the pulpit.
Yeah, that is so true. And you know what? People really know that this stuff exists. They just don't want to admit it because it gives them the willies. So they'd rather not talk about it.
I'll tell you a funny story. I went to a location, and to film there, I had to appear before the city council.
Oh, wow.
And this is in a very old southern town. I think the median age of the council members was 70. And of course the mayor. So I appear before the council, I get my approval, and I'm just gathering around with other people that were talking to me about what might be going on at the place I wanted to film at. And the mayor comes over and he starts looking around like it's a drug deal. And I'm like, what's up?
He's looking for ghosts.
No, he's looking for somebody that might hear him. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what? I've seen ghosts. and I've been in that building and I've heard things. Okay. It's just funny for me how people come out of their shell to expose themselves to, where they wouldn't expose themselves to other people. Quick funny story, and I'll kind of close the show up with you. But my sister, God love her, she was very hush hush about anything paranormal. And when she saw me finally come out of the paranormal closet on a television show, she had me. I went up there to visit her in New York, and we're sitting there having dinner, and everyone's quiet. And then she finally looks at me and she says, I've seen a ghost of a child upstairs at the top of the stairs go from bedroom to bedroom. Oh, okay. How long ago was this? 15, 20 years ago. And you're just now spilling your guts? I mean, it's just funny how people react to it. I think I had a lady that I was going to do a private case for that worked for the 911 dispatch center. She lived in a home that was so absolutely infested with paranormal activity. She slept on a couch all the time. She wound up eventually dying of a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
In the house from the activity. And she never said a word to anyone. She never went to church and said a word to anyone because she was afraid of being ostracized. And she never said a word to anyone at work or anything because of it. So, I applaud you for stepping out and speaking out about it and writing about it. It's something that has to get out there. People who are enthusiasts, viewers of this show, guys, I absolutely challenge you to go out and get the book, get the books, get them all, and get educated on what can happen in a person's home. Not just happening in old buildings somewhere. It's just happening in this lady's home.
And to break the stereotype that it has to be an old property, to break the stereotype that it has to be, tragic events, had to happen. This is an urban road with a family home, and all of the ticks in the box just didn't meet. Yet this is something that was so demonic that people could. How many times did it transfer names? Thank you for that. I appreciate your time, Lynn. It's been an absolute wonderful episode. Thank you for telling us your story. Thank you for coming out and introducing us to your books. Guys, if you didn't get to tune in, please check her out. Go to lynnmonet.com. She's got all of her books there. She's got her bio in there. There's a whole bunch, much more going on than we were able to get into the show. Lynn, I hope you can come back again.
I would love
and yeah, we'll discuss it more. We'd love to hear more from you and love to hear your stories. Guys, if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to put in the comments. We only have a little bit of time left, but we will make sure that they get answered.
Well, we're actually just about out of time. 20 seconds left. Guys, thank you for coming out. Please share this show. Please, go out and visit her website. And, we thank you very much for this. And Lynn, again, I thank you for your time. We thank you for your time. And folks, it was great having you out with us tonight and enjoying all the comments. We hope to see you next week. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Ladies, hold on just a minute.
Thank you for having me.